Hello and welcome. This is Sandeep Tyagi. I'm the host for the brand called You. The brand we are speaking to today is Sab Kanaujia. He's the CEO of Mindwell Labs. He's also managing partner of Dia Ventures, BTech from IIT Kanpur and MBA from University of Maryland. He's a very accomplished professional based in New York City. Welcome to the podcast, Sab.
Thank you, Sandeep. Glad to be here. And Sab is not my original name, obviously, but yeah, it's Sab, like Sam with a B. So I know
Okay.
it throws some people off, but
Sab, so welcome. And the we're going to cover your professional journey, personal journey. We'll talk about what has made you into you. Let's start with the company you are co-founder of and running as CEO right now, Mindwell Labs. The objective is to bring mindfulness to everyone. That's an interesting objective. Tell me more. What does the company do? What is it trying to achieve? And how did you get into this line?
sure. Um, well, I'll have to give you maybe a little bit of context why I'm doing Mindwell Labs, if you bear with me, because it's important. Um, so I will talk about my background, but I spent my previous life, if you will. I have lived two lives, I can say, in digital media entertainment, 20 plus years. And then I went through sort of a personal crisis in my life, and we can cover that on the personal section. But that made me shift towards what I'm doing today. And uh, it essentially was a realization that, I had to live a more purpose-driven life. And I had done digital media entertainment, and I realized that we need to focus more on our mind, and that comes from um, the fact that my personal crisis, took me to this meditation retreat in upstate New York, um, 10 years back, actually, this winter. And it's a week-long retreat, happens between Christmas and New Year. And I met three people there who changed my life and put me on this path. Two people who were teaching the retreat, Professor Bob Thurman and Sharon Salzberg. These are the giants in the Western mindfulness space. I don't know if the names ring bell for you, but for the viewers, Bob was called by Time magazine as one of the 25 most influential Americans. The government of India gave him Padam Shri a couple of years back. They gave it to Indians, they gave it to a white guy. Um, he was a first Westerner who was ordained as a Buddhist monk by Dalai Lama in early 1960s. And when he became a monk, he realized this wisdom is amazing. He said, I got to take it to my people. So he gave up his monkhood within a year, came back from India to the US, went back to Harvard to finish his PhD, which he had left halfway. And he realized that all this wisdom is trapped in these books written in Pali, the language of Buddha's time, more than 2,000 years old. So Bob learned Pali in 6 weeks and started translating these texts himself.
Hmm.
He just retired from Columbia. He held the only endowed chair in Indo-Tibetan studies at a major Western university. So he just retired from Columbia. He's 82 years old, but he still runs Center for Buddhist Studies, and they do the translation work. So Bob says that. So anyway, so I'll come to why I'm doing Mindwell. But Bob and then Sharon Salzberg. Sharon brought meditation to the West. She opened Insight Meditation Society outside of Boston in 1976. And this third person, I met, uh, who changed my life, is this amazing humanitarian officer at United Nations, who became my wife 10 months later. And Sharon is the godmother of our daughter, and Bob is the catalyst behind Mindwell Labs. So why I'm doing Mindwell Labs, what I realized after that week was I need to make a shift in my life. It doesn't make sense. It's not purpose driven, and I need to do something with our mind, because we were logged in for a week at this retreat, and I was the only Indian, I believe. There were like 80 people, and we would do chanting in the evenings, and I would chant and I would literally have tears. And I'm like, I'm going through an experience. The first night it happened, I called my mom the next morning. I said, I did Hanuman Chalisa last night and it was very good. And she like, Hanuman Chalisa, like, why were you doing that? So, well, I'm at a ashram because she wouldn't understand
Mm-hmm.
it. She doesn't, speak English. Um, and she, oh, what is this ashram? Who's the guru? I said, you won't know the guru.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they told me why we should chant. They gave me a scientific explanation. Human body is a vessel with water. You chant, you repeat certain terms, and it creates certain vibrations in your body. And given my science background, it made sense to me. And her first reaction was when I told her that, who was there at the retreat. Well, I've been telling you 40 years to do this, you won't do it. And now a bunch of great people are telling you and you are following them.
Right.
But essentially, what Bob says is that back in ancient times when Europeans were sailing all over the world to conquer land, people in India were busy conquering their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And philosophy and psychology were the first sciences in India. And he says, I failed to make that a science in the West. Today, they're considered to be arts. And he says, what you call as science, physics, chemistry, computer science, those are hard sciences. You use them to build hardware, these machines, sending the probe into deep space or mapping human genome. This is the software. And we have done nothing with this. So things he mentioned during that week really resonated with me. And I said, I have to do something with this. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a healthcare guy, so I didn't know what to do. I'm coming from media entertainment, but I was an entrepreneur. And I said, I have to figure this out. So essentially what we are doing with Mindwell Labs is really, there's a reason why it's called labs, because we are essentially marrying, I would say, proven ancient inner sciences coming from the East with modern technology to personalize these teachings to give to people based on their number. So we have built technologies to really measure what's happening here. And once we measure this, then we can send you these great teachings and see the impact. And if the impact is not good, then we'll send you something different. So it is about helping people unlock their full potential by really going to the software, which is by far the most important thing.
So is it an app on your phone or on the web, or how does it deliver that?
Yeah. So the reason we can do that today is because we have these devices, wearable devices. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
There are 2 billion of them out there. They shipped more than 500 million last year. And it's becoming a commodity. The fastest growing market actually is in India, under $50 smartwatches, which are made in the same Chinese and Taiwanese factories. The makers, they put their brand on it and then they sell it, right? So smartwatch market is growing the same way smartphones grew, right? And essentially, this is not a watch. This is a doctor on your wrist. So what it allows us to do is pull your vitals in real time.
Mhm.
And then we convert them into what's happening here.
Got it.
And based on that, since we are monitoring this throughout the day, we can look at your patterns, like how your mental state changes throughout the day, which is impacted by your environment. We help you figure out your triggers in your life, what is good for you, what is not good for you, and the things which are not good for you, but you can't avoid, let's say, going someplace or talking to somebody which makes you anxious. Then we send you all these interventions coming from proven ancient inner sciences, personalized based on a number. And since we track you in real time, we also see the intervention we sent you, whether it's a content piece with music or breathing exercise or meditation or visualization, whatever it is. We see, did it calm you down or not? If it did not, then we know the efficacy in real time. So we learn about your mind, what works for you, and then we iterate, in the back end.
Very interesting. What's the app called?
The app is called AQ. AQ stands for attention quotient. We have built a metric to measure this because the funny thing is that the most important part of a body, and we don't measure it. We have no
Yeah,
metric to measure it, right?
sure,
You
sure.
take a car today, Toyota, standard car, all the sensors in the body, information coming to the dashboard, right? We are measuring every single part. Human body, we don't do that. So we said, okay, we got to track this in real time. So AQ
Yeah.
stands for attention quotient, and human attention is a gateway trait for a mental wellness.
And it's available both on iPhone and Android?
Right now, only iPhone because we are
Okay,
early stage, but it'll be soon on Android as well.
very interesting. Now, this is quite a change. You were in media, as you said. The objective of media is actually to distract people, to kind of get you engaged in something outside. And now you have changed the team, and you're playing on the other team now, trying to get people to not be distracted, to be mindful. Uh, how did you resolve this? Do you kind of feel like, as a society with so much distraction and the work that you have done in other places, the OTT and the media companies, have you resolved that in your mind on how does these two things work? What is the place of each, and can they coexist? Should they coexist?
I'm repenting for my first life in my second life. Um, I was at AOL when we bought advertising.com, which was the first ad tech company. I was one of the founding members of the corp dev team there. And this is like 20 years back. And we used to, do a simple analysis. Okay, in 24 hours, somebody sleeps for 8 hours, maybe 8 hours works, another couple of hours, eating food and whatever. So we have 4 or 5 hours discretionary time in a person's life. And that is the time we want to hijack that person's attention, right? So as we know, it's an attention economy, and I was in the, business of hijacking your attention, right? Building these advertising platforms, and the whole advertising model is based on that, right? You watch a movie, you're very attentive, we give a break, and then we show you an ad, right? So you're very attentive. Um, so yeah, all of those realizations came after that week. And as I thought about, I didn't launch Mindwell for a few years after that because I was still trying to figure out what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not from healthcare. And then Bob invited me back to that retreat a few years later and introduced me to my now co-founder, Dr. Sean, who's a neuroscientist. But yeah, I felt that, as we have also seen, there is a backlash against big tech. Like these technologies are not really, the externalities, right, are severe, and it's dividing us. And um, so it's funny that people who invented these things are most cautious about it, right? So
Interesting.
I barely do social media, and now, from hijacking people's attention, we have built AQ, attention quotient, helping you measure your attention and giving the agency back to you. So there is no dichotomy in my mind. I think what we are doing is really, giving people the tools so they can really be the best of themselves.
Very interesting. Um, Changing gears a little bit, let's talk about your personal journey. Sab, where were you born? What was your childhood like?
I was, very simple childhood. I was born in a small town in UP, Shah Jahanpur. It's like 3 hours, 4 hours from Lucknow. And um, my father, is a doctor, and my mother is a housewife. I'm one of five. I'm second youngest. And yeah, I went to Christian schools, and I was there until my 10th grade. So growing up in a simple, small town, and, you know, nothing fancy. I went to Delhi Public School, Mathura Road, from my 11th and 12th. And when I came to Delhi, it was, I lived in a boarding house because, I was not from Delhi. And it was a shock to me.
Mm.
I later came to US, that shock was not as big as a shock I had going from Shahjahan, born and brought up there, and coming to Delhi, living in a boarding house. So yeah, I did my 11, 12 from there, and then later on, I qualified to join IIT Kanpur. I chose the Kanpur campus because I'm from UP, and yeah, I did my BTech there, and after that, one thing I knew after IIT that I didn't want to be an engineer. So I was trying to figure out what exactly to do. Most people come to the US. I didn't want to come here for my MS or PhD. So I applied and I got scholarship to do MBA here. And I came on a scholarship to do MBA at University of Maryland, College Park.
Wow. What a fascinating, and lots of common threads. My dad was a doctor, grew up in small towns in Punjab and went to IIT, so very similar journeys. What stood out as an advice you got early on that you think had a big impact that maybe changed? One, obviously, meeting Bob Thurman and other people at this meditation you already talked about had a huge impact on you. Is there any other event, particularly earlier on in your life, that changed the direction? Somebody told you to go to IIT or go to Delhi or go to US or what have you?
Not necessarily. I mean, the reason I went to IIT is, I mean, everybody in India wants to go to IIT, right? If you are good at maths and science, then that's your goal. But I was always good in studies, so I was, among the top 5 in the class. So I said, okay, you should go to IIT, and during my 4 years in IIT, again, I'm not I'm a bit of a private person. I just yeah, I think I sometimes I think about it, Sandeep, and a lot of my life until this change which happened, I mean, I was just going with the flow. I mean, what the world said is success, you should just follow that. I mean, I was not thinking
Follow the crowd.
follow the crowd, exactly, if you don't want to do engineering, to do an MBA. Okay, well,
Sure.
you can do an MBA in India, or you can do it here. And I felt that MBA is more like an art versus science, so doing it in a country which is the biggest economy, I think would be more, impactful. I left in 95. I came to US in 1995. So India had already opened their markets in 92 by the time. So some, Western companies had started coming in. So there was already uh, uh, this excitement about open economy, learn from the West, the business practices. So I said, okay, let me just go there if
Sure.
I can get a scholarship, because I didn't have the money to pay, and back then you don't get loans and all that. So I could not have come. I did apply and got into some Ivy Leagues. Uh, Cornell gave me $5,000 scholarship a year, which covered, less than 1/4 of their tuition. So Maryland gave me full funding and stipend as well. So no, I just, I came here, did my MBA, and um, I just, I landed. There were, I think, fortuitous things which happened. I landed in US at the campus the same week Netscape went public,
Hmm.
August of 1995. Amazon had raised their first round of funding that summer, and eBay launched that December, a few months later. So many people say 1995, or the IPO of Netscape, was the dawn of the internet, right?
Hmm.
And so I was very fortunate that, I was on a US campus the week Netscape went public, and there was this buzz on the campus that this thing called internet will change the world. And I got
Right.
swept into that, right? So again, I was lucky. And the other luck which happened was, by the end of that semester, I was working at a startup while doing my full-time MBA. A couple of alums from the university had started a company, and they hired me as the first MBA hire to run their business development. And as a kid, I've never left India before. Within few months, landing in the US, I'm running biz dev for a small company. I was learning in the classroom, and literally I was do the course and come back. It's okay, we should do this.
Very interesting.
An auction house for that company. This is before eBay, and we grew the revenue. The company went public a year and a half later. Still alive. Last year did 2 billion in revenue, one of the oldest IPOs on NASDAQ. So those guys, founders, taught me how to build a company for the long term. So I say was very lucky. I just kept going through the motion. Honestly,
Wonderful. What company was that?
When we launched, it was called MLC Group, but it changed its name later on. It's called E Plus. So the ticker is Plus. It's one of the oldest NASDAQ IPOs.
Very interesting. You mentioned there was something really major that happened in your life that kind of made you rethink, and you went for this 7-day meditation retreat. Usually people head to those when things are going topsy-turvy. What prompted that? What was going on?
Oh, I went through a bad divorce and a very bitter custody battle. And I was kind of lost for a while. I think for a couple of years, I was walking around like a zombie,
Right, right, right.
And it was very hard to deal with that. And I was dating somebody, and that person said, "You should try meditation." I said, "Meditation? I mean, I come from India. I've heard about it, but I don't know, because I kind of I was never a religious person. I went to temples with the family, but
Sure.
didn't have my own practice. And so this person said, go to Tibet House, which is in Midtown Manhattan, and take a class, if you don't know how to do it. So I went for a class. I found the teacher very obnoxious, and I said, "Oh, this is not for me." And on my way out, I saw a flyer. Hey, bring New Year differently. There's a New Year's meditation retreat in upstate New York. And I thought about that line, bring the New Year differently. And they say if you keep doing the same thing, you should not expect different results, right? So I said, okay, New Year's, I go to a party, come back early morning, and I'm drunk, I have a headache, and that's how January 1st happens, right? I was in media entertainment, and I worked for 2 Hollywood studios, so there were all these crazy parties. I said, okay, maybe I bring the New Year differently, and I saw that flyer. I went to that retreat that week, and I can see my
Rest
life
is history.
after that retreat,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, those things are traumatic. They can have a huge impact on your personal life. And I also speak from personal experience. So I understand how that can make you relook and re-examine your life. But you made something good out of it. So kudos to you. The the next section here, we're going to talk a bit about some of your quick reactions. What's your favorite cuisine?
You may laugh at it. Tandoori roti and dal.
I would laugh at it. It's probably close to mine too. What's your
Just
favorite
dal,
book?
not nothing fancy, just simple arhar ki
Sure.
dal.
Mhm. You're from UP, so you're just betraying your roots.
Yeah.
That's comfort food we all grew up eating. I'm from UP as well, so I know what you're talking about. What's your favorite book?
Ah, um, favorite. I have so many because I have really, you can see the library here. Because I've been on this journey the last 10 years. I would say the favorite book would be actually it's called Inner Revolution.
Hmm.
And it's
Okay.
by Bob Thurman, who I treat as my teacher. And it's essentially, Bob says, this is the software, right? So as an entrepreneur, I say, before you disrupt an industry, disrupt yourself. Figure out your true intention, your true reason why you want to do what you want to do. So yeah, I highly recommend Inner Revolution by Bob Thurman.
Very interesting. If you were to meet, could invite any historical figure for a dinner, who would you like to meet, and what would you talk about?
People I read up about, admire, these are political leaders, but Nelson Mandela or even, Mahatma Gandhi, how they could really transform and create a movement, by leading by example.
Very interesting. Do you have a big concern about the state of the world that you worry about? You say, like, what's going on in this area? What's your biggest concern about the world?
In this area means in a particular area or in general?
No, it could be anything that you say, this is my passionate concern about the future of the world.
Yeah. I think I'll come back to what I was saying earlier. I think people should focus a lot more, and I did not growing up as an engineer. We never focus as much on the softer side of the things, right? It was all analytical, but I spent a lot of time, especially in the last 10 years, on the on the other side of the brain, because I think the so much focus on STEM is all great, but if you take out the arts, you know, it teaches you how to ask the right questions, So I would say, I mean, there are many things you can talk about how we are more polarized as a society. There is social media to be blamed, a bunch of things. But I think people should really think about living a purpose-driven life and don't undermine the value of arts in your life, because that balance is very, very important. So, try to figure yourself out. I think I wrote a blog post, How to Live a Free Life. And I think most of us live like prisoners. I can recommend so many books. There's a book by Ryan Holiday, Ego is the Enemy. I think it's a very important book to read. Sightseeing, and I feel many times, you can go and do sightseeing, take pictures, but I think learning about how people live, how other people live, different people live, it forces you to think differently,
Yeah.
So I would try to learn something new from the local culture.
Coming to the end, we could talk a lot more. What is for other people to experience that as well? Thank you for talking with us, Sab.
Thank you, Sandeep. It was fun. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.